I'm here with Phabien Doiron, and we're doing something new. I've been wanting to hear more from the men who've been actively involved in the men's retreats and this work that we've been doing. And I thought, what better way than to sit down and dive in with it? Here's the first one that we're leaning into. And thanks, Phabien, for taking the time to drop in and speak from the heart.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
So I'm curious,
Uh,
man, like what
uh,
was life like prior to entering into the men's retreat for you?
yeah, so prior to June 2023, yeah,
Yeah.
that's about it. I was at a place where I'm someone that's been, I would say, addicted to personal development and personal growth and healing from my old wounds and past traumas and stuff. I would say probably since about 28, especially because I really started going deep in a few different things at that point. But 2023, I still had, let's say, a few experiences. I'll leave it at that, that weren't fully processed. And even stepping into the retreat, there was a part of me that felt that because of certain labels that I've had, let's say, put on me in my youth when I was younger, when I was 18, that I wouldn't be accepted in the retreats. So there was even like fear within myself of not being able to be part of them in some ways, even though that I knew that at that point in my life I was someone that was like very grounded and in a good place in a
Hmm.
lot of ways. Yeah, so there was a lot I had worked through still personally on a personal level, on different levels, and yeah, that's kind of where I was to answer your question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I know, I
to
know
leave it simple.
I know there's a lot of backstory there. So you did a good job taking
Yeah.
it and distilling it and bringing it down for us. And yeah, I can imagine that was a vulnerable experience, even when you had that interest in wanting to lean into the retreat and then
Yeah.
facing, am I even okay? Will I be accepted in this because of
Yeah.
the stigmatization around mental health that we have societally and
Yeah.
the social shame that we carry? Mental health is something that's so present and
Mm,
so pervasive within our society. And yet it's this really weird kind of taboo. We're trying to normalize it in the ways we do. It doesn't even seem necessarily super constructive.
yeah.
And yeah, I can imagine that was a really rough time. And what was that pull? I guess you said you were already really addicted to self-development, so maybe it
Yeah.
wasn't as much of a jump for you to make that leap, but
I was all in the minute I heard about it.
yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't a difficult decision for me to say that I wanted to be a part of. Yeah,
Mm.
at all.
And why do you
And
think, obviously self-development, but
yeah,
is there anything in
I
particular
knew
that
there were certain parts in myself personally that I still needed to work through as well, and I knew that this was the type of support I needed. So I
mm,
had a calling to be part of it. I was seeking, I would say, even for a deeper connection with people around me. So yeah, I know I walked in with still like a sense of, I would say, brokenness. To bring back to your point with mental health and mental illness, when we get labeled, quite often the perspective of society today is that a lot of people take on a perspective like I know I
yeah.
had, that you feel like there's something wrong with you, that you're
Mm,
broken. So yeah, I definitely walked in with that, and I knew I was still carrying that at that point. So yeah, being able to step in a group where I was able to release that
mm,
and shift my perspective so that I saw my experiences that I lived through, which are experiences, in a different lens, so that I could really learn that those experiences, those labels that were put on me were not my identity.
mm,
And that was a huge lesson learned, I would say, in the last, yeah, but what, year and a half now?
mm.
Yeah. Like I said, I knew it was a fuck yes for me already going in. I knew I needed to do that work, and I can dive deeper into that. Like there were even certain events and experiences during COVID and all that, where I actually re-traumatized myself that I know I was still working through. And my lesson was that to make sure I leave room for integration, to not rush healing, because sometimes it can be counterproductive, and
Right.
we can actually, yeah, re-traumatize yourself,
Yeah.
like I did.
Especially
So
without the right ongoing support structures and
correct.
taking it at that right pace. And I've listened to you speak. I mean, we've chatted lots. We're really good friends. And I've also listened to you speak publicly about your experiences with this. And I think your message around you are not broken, you are
Hmm.
not your diagnosis. As an educator, I've witnessed the systems and structures within society, either consciously or unconsciously, suppress people's sovereignty and
Mm,
our sense of agency, our ability to lead our lives in that direction that we desire.
mm,
From a young age, we're taught to look outside of us for external authorities. And I think what's happening in the medical system by feeling a sense of relief from a diagnosis, I can understand that at some level. But I also see that that can disempower individuals
yeah.
when you attach your identity to that label. And watching your journey and your transformation with that, and then you modeling that for others. And I'm
Mhm.
seeing how that's even impacting other men who've dealt with similar challenges.
Yeah, it was a, powerful shift. Yeah, changed my own perspective. Is exactly like you said. I know I have been connected with
Yeah.
other men, other people that had similar experiences and that are kinda trapped in that perspective that I know I've been able to help shift a bit. And, yeah, I feel blessed to be able to be at a good place where I can do that.
Yeah. It's
So
amazing, man. And I think you're just getting started with it all, to be honest, because we're in a place where these challenges are growing. They're not going away. And while medications can be a band aid, they're not an ultimate solution. And I know that's something that you press on and talk a lot about as well. And that we need to go to the root. If we need short term temporary relief, okay.
mhm,
But we need to go to the root of these issues. And another mentor of mine says, we're wounded in relationship and we heal in relationship.
mm,
And so, as much as I can do personal development on my own, so much of the deepest wounds that I carry are from a relationship.
mhm,
And so I actually need to go into spaces where that vulnerability is stirred up, where these insecurities are stirred up, and somatically in my body, in my heart, in my mind, heal that in relationship.
absolutely.
So,
Need
talk to me about what stood out to you in your experiences attending the retreats. You've been at 6 so far, and now you're even helping to lead these.
mm,
I'm curious, what's it been like for you? What's been a powerful aspect of it?
what's been a powerful aspect? There's been lots.
Yeah.
There's been lots of different powerful processes that we were guided through, to leave it simple. And just being able to go into space and express myself fully, be heard, and have people there that could relate, and other men that have gone through similar paths, not necessarily the same, but
Right.
similar paths where we can relate with has been super beneficial. And again, healing and transforming myself into the version I am today, and to be able to find more comfort in speaking about certain
Mhm.
things that I shied away from quite often, like mental illness, mental health, the stigma around it, having the ability to let go of the fear of being slapped on the hands by professionals that think they have the right perspective,
Right.
and to be able to speak about these things. Yeah, just empowering myself has been a big shift, and being comfortable and talking about these things, talking about my own experience, which we can dive deeper on another episode.
Part 2.
Part 2. Yeah, and the retreats were lots of fun. There's a lot of playfulness, so it's not just about doing that deep
Mm.
work, but there's a lot of activities that I found to be very playful and fun. It's good for us to remember that we don't always need to be serious. I know that's a reminder that I had to remind myself along the years,
Me too.
especially in business. Like, I was someone that was
Mm.
very serious all the time, but to be able to incorporate a little bit of play
Mm.
is a good thing, right? And yeah, so the retreats have been, again, just super empowering, a place where I've been able to make beautiful connections with other people at a deeper level than most of us have with our own family or loved ones. Yeah, been good.
Yeah, it's hard to summarize a retreat experience, right? And all
Yeah.
the different things that are done. And I think one thing, and I'm curious to hear your perspective on this. One thing that I find so powerful, I mean, we have processes that can lead us very deep, but I find one of the most powerful things that I continue to observe is when a group of 16 men sit down in a circle who
Mm,
start off as almost deer in the headlights. Like, the fuck am I doing here with all these men? I'm being asked to share something vulnerable. This is weird.
Mhm.
And yet, when that invitation is actually taken seriously, or a man steps in and vulnerability starts to permeate the space, I see the men start to almost soften, almost start to
Mhm.
open up. And I'm sitting here listening to this man share. And despite the context or the story itself that he's sharing might be different than my own experience, the underlying experience really resonates. And I'm sitting there, yeah, oh, me too. Or like, I feel you.
Mhm.
You know, I thought I was alone in this, because that alone, just that share where I can resonate with other people's perspective and have my own heard,
Mhm.
can be so liberating in and of
Absolutely.
itself. And I'm curious your take, your perspective on that.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and I could say I've noticed myself hearing other things from people sometimes that, okay, made it okay for me to share about that a little bit,
Mm,
and vice versa. I've noticed, well, from the get-go, as you know, I went in and shared very vulnerably and pretty deeply what my experiences were. And I've noticed that when I shared about my experience at 18, where I went through my existential crisis, psychosis, all the labels attached, whatever you want to call it, and attempted to take my own life, I notice many people in that circle talk about actually trying to take their own lives or things like that, or certain experiences they had that were similar. So, myself sharing about my experience and being okay with it makes it
mm,
okay for everybody else. And yeah, when you hear someone else share about it, well, I, like you said, I observe the other men around me soften a little bit.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And the thing I would add there that I note around that process and that degree of vulnerability through the container and through the space and the safety that's created to do so and to go there, is this idea of shame. Like,
Mm,
shame is a very different quality than guilt, right? If I think of guilt, guilt is I did something bad,
mm-hmm,
whereas shame is I am bad, I am
mm-hmm,
wrong. There's such a disempowering emotion, such a disempowering internal dialogue, which is often a root of my negative behaviors,
mm,
the patterns that I perpetuate. Shame is tied intimately into those,
deeply.
deeply
Yeah,
into those.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the second I'm observed and witnessed in sharing the deepest things that I'm scared of, the parts of me that I don't love, the things that I'm avoiding in my life,
yeah,
see another man be like, yeah, me too, or I feel you. Wow.
yeah.
That alone can be such a transformative power.
Hmm. And like I said last night, even I seen yourself share some of those things you're avoiding or whatever. And how did I say that last night at one of the calls? I just noticed that even after 6 retreat, I still have some shit that I'm
Yeah.
avoiding. So, yeah.
Ongoing.
Yeah.
So what's been some of the bigger challenge of these retreats? Like, what do you find?
Biggest challenge, stepping into a circle and speaking definitely had a level of discomfort for me,
Mhm,
from the get-go, and I've seen myself grow, and I know you've seen myself grow and stepping in and even guiding certain processes. So, yeah, the level of confidence and certainty that I've been able to develop in my speaking ability, in the words and the things I've shared,
mhm,
that I share, has developed immensely. Because going back even further in my youth, I was basically someone that was very socially anxious. I would say even socially awkward. Wouldn't speak about personal things very much. My ability to really find my voice has been a challenge.
mhm,
To answer your question, so what was challenging? That's one of the things. And yeah, being faced with conflict, I'll just share a small example where I know there was one of the situations where I shared about a judgment that I was holding on someone else, but being able to share openly with both parties knowing that this was my projection and dealing with that
mhm,
conflict and being able to express myself and the emotions I felt and where that came from was something I found very difficult to navigate. Yeah, maybe you can touch a bit more on that and the processes, guide us to that type of conflict. Definitely
point.
a big area where not only myself, that
Right.
I've seen a lot of men maybe struggle
Mhm.
facing that conflict.
Myself included.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
an ongoing
Yeah.
thing, honestly. I just wanna, recognize you and the growth I've seen because one of the processes we're talking about right now is charge clearing.
Mhm.
And watching you
Yeah.
step in, you've either been called in or stepped into the ring most times, which is a really honest and courageous thing to do. Because the whole thing is about observing our projections, our judgments, our criticisms of other people, and taking radical ownership of them.
Mm.
That is the invitation when we step into a charge clearing. Because what I need to recognize in my life is that my life is the projection of my own experiences. All what appears to be external reality is filtered by my internal state, all of it. So for me to tell another man where I'm judging him, where I'm criticizing him, and then get to a point where I can actually find out where the root wound of who I'm projecting that onto, was it an issue with my mother, with my father, with somebody at school?
Mhm.
And then even further, where am I showing up like this in my life that I'm actually projecting that out onto you? Because it's so much easier to criticize, judge, and blame. And the bigger part about that is part of the reason why we do the sacred combat or the charge clearings or any of these emotional or physical or mental practices is because it's training. It's training for life. I practice yoga often. I practice
Mm.
other sports as well. And we practice so that when the moment comes up, I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
That's why we
Yeah.
train. That's why we practice because I need to get my nervous system right.
Mhm.
I need to be regulated. I need to be able to touch on a spot that I've practiced
Yeah.
through regulating my nervous system, through dealing with conflict, through owning my judgments, owning my criticisms,
Mm.
asking clearly for what I need, and expressing what I'm experiencing emotionally.
Mm.
So many men, our emotional vocabulary and our capacity to identify emotions is so limited.
Mm.
And I think that's something that can be very frustrating for women in our lives
Mm.
because they want to know what's going on within us. And it's been challenging for us because that's not been modeled. And you're experiencing pain, you're experiencing things, stuff it down. So the courage it takes and the refinement in being able to even identify what emotion is moving through us
Mhm.
is a practice.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I remember, yeah, one of the circles, I think I remember you saying, "Yeah, no, that's not an emotion. That's a judgment." Just thinking back, and I would say my emotional literacy is pretty good, okay, but in that moment, like, with the charge there, I just couldn't find my words.
Mhm.
So, yeah, even being able to find the vocabulary or the way to express those emotions in those states,
Mhm.
and like you said, I love the way you said it, where it's training, it's, practice, it's teaching our nervous system to be able to stay regulated and respond in a way that's healthy. So yeah, I love the way you shared that. That's yeah, on point. And it shows, I know, in my
Right.
relationships, and even with my spouse, with my wife, and how I've been able to show up. Still plenty of room for improvement, but yeah, I've been just able to hold space better. Very important.
Very important. And I know just touching on your relationship with your wife, I know there's been experiences from the past that created rifts and wounds that were there. And in doing so much of this work, I've observed you deepen in and be able to restore and come back and continue to deepen in and
Mm.
recognize that it's an ongoing thing. There's going to be times where conversation goes well and times where it's not perfectly handled, but then there's an ability to come back quicker
Yeah,
and to clean up the mess that we make quicker
yeah,
than rather than deferring blame and judgment and not being able to own our part.
yeah, exactly.
And I think what you're talking about is such an important piece because by many social metrics, we've done really well to support women's equality. One thing, however, that I think has received not enough attention is the fact that women still do not feel fully psychologically safe around
Mm.
men. And as a man, I don't know what a woman's experience is like, but I feel pain in that. I feel pain in the idea that a woman can't feel safe around another man. And I think it's my responsibility and your responsibility and the responsibility of all men to step up and to get better at regulating our nervous system and to recognize that historically women have not felt safe around men for good reason. And so it's our duty as fathers, as brothers, as sons to create a space of safety, to create a refuge that women can feel safe, that children can feel supported. And I think this work for me has been critical in being able to even step in to have a chance at that.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, I feel you on that one.
Mm,
I know I've been in situations where my own wife couldn't fucking feel safe.
mm,
So it hits home. I know you said, yeah, men need to step up, but not only that, I love the way you say it quite often. I think we need to step in
mm,
and we need to step into a new version of what men can be. I need to continue stepping into a version of myself that's better, that's emotionally fit, emotionally intelligent, that's able to function and have a regulated nervous system so that I don't lose my shit or actually ramble like I did last night with my wife on something that I should have just shut up for. So just being able to continue improving things like that so that I can show up and have that level of stability, that I'm able to be centered, grounded, so that the women in my life can feel safe.
mm.
And if we can all do that individually and teach our kids, which I know you have a huge passion for still with the childhood education, to show up in such a way, we can make a huge shift where women will have that psychological safety. I have no doubt. These are all learned behaviors that, as a man, I know I didn't friggin' learn growing up. I love my parents, but they didn't learn it growing up. And that ability to stay centered, grounded, and still have the ability to process our emotions and feel and know where it comes from, whether it's from a past experience or present situations, whatever, but to be able to process those emotions properly and not be desensitized to them, as I know I was for a long time. Yeah, there's a huge responsibility that we all need to take as men, which is why I truly believe in this work and why it's so important that I would say all men need to go through.
Mm,
Some people might think that it's not for them. I would
mm,
challenge them on that and ask them why. And I think anyone that shows up to these types of retreats or events or to dive in deeper is going to benefit in some way, shape, or form in a way where we'll be able to show up better and step into better versions of ourselves that can be there for people that we love in a better way
mm.
and create that safety.
And it's important just being able to have a pulse on what I'm experiencing emotionally and being able to name what's
Mhm.
happening in my body, what emotions are coming up that are tied to that. And then also being able to maintain confidence that I can lead myself through this, whether that's knowing that I can go ask for support or that I know
Mhm.
the action to take or that I know the next step. I
Yeah.
need to be able to actually have a pulse on my emotions and identify what's alive in me because then I'm trustworthy. Then I'm a safer space because they know what's happening in me and can
Mm.
connect to something deeper in me. And I have the capacity to lead myself through whatever I'm experiencing. That's a critical component. And so it's really that blend of both. I can be with my feminine aspects and touch on that. And then I have
Mhm.
that masculine capacity to sit through it, to hold it, and to move it in the direction that I desire.
Yeah. To not
That's
be
safe.
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple points there too, that as men, we need to be able to know what those tools are that we can use to do this training and to learn to develop these skills.
Mhm,
And also, yeah, like you said, learn and have the ability to find it within ourselves that it's okay to seek support and
mhm,
ask for help. Because I know I never went for help until I was at a bit of a breaking point, and that it was encouraged, maybe strongly, by my partner to, yeah, maybe explore, and I agreed to it. So we often either have to get to rock bottom or have those challenging moments in
mhm,
life to really ask for help. But if we can be more proactive and knowing that, okay, I have something here that I'm struggling with, and that I trust that I have another man or group that I can go to and actually ask for support
Mm,
or tools that they might know about that I can learn to develop these skills
mm,
so that I can show up in a way where, yeah, I'm regulated and grounded
yeah.
and able to respond in a effective, healthy manner, communicate better, all of that stuff.
Yeah, man.
So
It's critical.
it's critical. Yeah.
I say it often. I'm flawed and fallible. I'm a human being, and inevitably I'm gonna fall flat on my face.
Yeah.
And what brotherhood has done for me, the second I fall down, I know that I can reach out for help. And sometimes I'm still stubborn and it takes me a while because it's challenging, it's vulnerable. To ask for help has felt traditionally like a diminishment of my worth.
Mm.
And I'm learning that it's not the case and that I need a strong community around me to be the best version of myself and to maintain that through the waves of life. And so it really does help me shorten the gaps
Mhm.
between every time I fall flat on my face, I forget who I am, why I'm here, the stories of self-doubt and all the self-deprecation that come up, and to say, hey, like I'm struggling right now. Like, here's what's going on, and getting a clear reflection or the feedback I need or the accountability I need or the support I need, you know, or just somebody to hear me
Yeah.
sometime.
Yeah. Just to have that
Yeah.
space and yeah. Yeah, and I love how you explain that it, shortens that gap.
Mm.
Yeah, because sometimes the struggle can be real and we
Oh,
just
yeah.
don't see a way out, but to be able to shorten that gap where I can fall flat on my face and stand up again or yeah, just being at a breaking point and being able to see a way out of it and
Mm,
having that support or yeah,
it's huge.
so it's
So, what
big.
would you say to any man, is listening to this and resonating with aspects of it, but also terrified or like still not sold on any kind of idea of like, why the fuck would I step in with all these men? That's a
Mm,
terrifying thing. It's not something our culture does. What would you tell a man who's maybe curious, maybe open to this work, but not fully there?
yeah. Come on down, have some fun. Because it is there these retreats are fun. There's a lot of play.
Hmm.
And no, it's not easy work to do when we initially get into it, but it gets easier.
Mm.
I would say, actually, I had someone the other day that really felt like, yeah, it was intimidating or confronting, like you said, to step into these types of experiences. And often, I would say a lot of us are comfortable in our yeah comfort zone and avoid facing these types of experiences. But by doing so, we're gypping ourselves.
Mm.
We're not playing with that edge, like you say often, to really get into uncomfortable situations so that we can grow. I know I grown immensely in the last just year and a half. The level of growth that we can achieve is priceless.
Yeah.
And it is challenging. It's not comfortable, but it's worth it.
Mm. Yeah, man. I agree fully. And what's also
Yeah,
not comfortable is repeating the same fucking patterns over and over
right.
again.
And being miserable and suffering and yeah.
Yeah. There's going to be a part of us that needs to die in order for the version that we aspire to be.
Yeah.
And that means addressing what we're avoiding, letting go of the limiting beliefs,
Mhm.
dealing with the shame that's lying just under the surface there, that's always at play. And so, yeah, there's a part of us that's got to die, but also your mundane life is the life of addiction and, repeating patterns. That's also uncomfortable at some other level. So I guess choose your hard.
Exactly. Choose your herd. That's very well said. I love it. Yeah. Exactly.
Is there
Yeah.
anything else you'd like to
Yeah.
say as we close this off?
Yeah. I just wanted to say that I appreciate you. I I love you. And you've really been a brother along the way. I know you've been there in ways that I know I had a few times during the retreats where I struggled, and yeah, you just came up and checked in. It's like, what's going on? And you're very observant, and I really appreciate that. And yeah, like I said, I feel blessed to be your friend here and part of this.
Mm,
So there's a lot of love there and a lot of appreciation. Thanks for yeah inviting me to sit down and hang out and have a chat.
dude.
Have a chat that many of us don't have. Because I know some of the stuff here we've talked about is not talked about enough.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, thank you for taking that first step and creating this movement and uh, moving this type of work forward in our area.
Mhm.
And thank you, Riley, even though he's not here, for the medicine that he brings in. So,
It's an honor. It's an honor to call you a brother and a best friend, and growing with you, knowing that I can rely on you. I'm fucking inspired by you tremendously, and growing in all the ways, man. I love you dearly. I appreciate you.
love you.
Thanks, everyone.